Thank you very much, band, for that jazz interlude. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to hear from the elders in the family as we go to the last lap of our speeches. I'd like to invite Uncle Sam and you two.
All protocol preserved with due respect. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to invite Dr. Pass, followed by her sister, and then we shall follow the conclude. Something.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all to this place today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for honoring us. Thank you for loving us. That's it. In reality, I have a lot to talk about my nephews and my niece, but I'll just say a few things which are valid. I'll start with George. When my husband was in Entebbe, my brother was also in Entebbe. The two, George and my son John, teamed up together and they loved one another so much that you could not even separate them. This accident that George had, they were together. And George had climbed up a tree. I think it was mangoes or something. Was it mangoes? Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened. Somehow, George fell down. And John cried a lot, said, George has fallen down. He came to me and said, Mommy, George has fallen down. I was in Grade B hospital then, doing nursing. And I told him that, did you tell Mommy Mabel? He said, no, she's not there. But somehow, she also heard the news and she rushed. They took George to hospital. They did all whatever they could do. Somehow, they did not get well from that fall. So he was taken to I don't know how they call them in Ateso. And that man actually worked on George until he managed to, begin walking and continuing with his studies. Now, their friendship continued up to the death of my son. And when my son was truly badly off, I was then working with the church, and I had his children. He had 2 children whom I was educating as well. You know, the churches also depend upon you people to give them something in order to give others as a blessing. So my salary was always delaying to come. But when George started working, he took care of my son, because my son then became, how can I call it now? He was not well anyway. And George, whenever I went to him to ask for assistance, he would give me some money to buy medication. And the medication was very, very expensive at my level of money. He was always there for me. For his brother, he loved him, even when we moved to Entebbe, because I built a house in Entebbe. When I moved there, John became worse. And each time I went to him, he would assist me. He was such a generous, kind-hearted boy. He was so loving.
Has come here. I thank you so much for sparing your time to come here to share with us and celebrate. I'm one of the aunties, let me say one of the young aunties. There is the youngest, but we are the remaining 3. Some were 4. I stand here before you to talk about the 3. I cut it short by talking about the 3 people. David Opio was born in 1954. I was born in 1957. He was born in 1959 together with my follower, the late Martin Ekocku. And Sarah was born in 1962. So when our dad, a home of 7 wives, our mother was the last wife. When our dad passed on, I was in the category of these people. So when daddy passed on, I was in Soroteses. But during holidays, Papa Ekocku, Tote Ekocku, chose me to be going to Entebbe. As you see me like this, physically fit and hard-working girl, I was always being picked from this village with a Mercedes-Benz Ariel Numa up to Entebbe. So most of my time, I used to stay in Entebbe with these young people. When I talked about David Opio and Charles Ochen, that home of Papa Ekocku, there was no segregation. I don't need to repeat on that. We were treated equally. But me with David Ochen and Opio, we were one of those who started drinking. You know that home was loaded. They used to bring things from State House, beers, whiskeys, wines. So why not? We joined in the store. We were being taken care of well. We served ourselves and we were healthy. We were feeding well. There was no problem. So I grew up, even when I went to Lira Nurses Training School, still Ekocku. I could go back when they have given us equally. Popcorns, what, cakes, what. I go back to Lira when I'm loaded. Ariel Numa, up to Lira Nurses Training School. So I was a girl who was elected as a head girl in that school because they knew loaded. Now, after my training school in Lira, I was posted back to Soroti. What happens? I was swung to Captain Mike Mokola, loaded. So as you see me stand here, I'm a very healthy person. Was being taken care of very well up to today, up to tomorrow. I don't lack a cent. All these sons and daughters of mine, when I just use my phone that I'm badly off, immediately. So this family here, let's emulate from this family. Paul there was a very young boy. Edward there was there. We grew up here. Those who was there work was looking for birds, but my work again was to roast the birds and steal the salt from the old women, to roast birds in this village. I would talk a lot, but I'm telling you, I really appreciate your coming here. Otherwise, I will talk up to tomorrow. I thank you so much for coming. And may the Almighty God bless all of you. Bless these 3 children we have prayed for today, and bless their children and the whole clan and the whole family. Thank you so much for listening to me. When you hear me talking, give me more time. Thank you.
Thank you, second in command. Second in command, it was not only birds, including squirrels. Were there. Great, your people.
I'm very grateful to be given this wonderful chance to talk. Call me Susanna Meso or call me Susanna Lepo, one of the two. I grew up together with Paul. We were together. That is the person I grew up with. Sarah was a very beautiful girl. That's how I knew her. Very beautiful. I think she would even be Miss Uganda if she was that time. Then, when I talk about Opio, the way he could walk, I used to see how he could walk. He used to walk like father, our brother, Jonathan Ekocku. That's how I knew him. Could drink with the relatives at home, and they used to love home. They could come, sit together with us. Our brother could come even past midnight, but we could get up and sit with him. That was Jonathan Ekocku, the one who produced Opio, Sarah, and George. So I really don't have much to say, but our brother Jonathan Ekocku did a lot. That's how I knew him. He brought up his children in a God-fearing manner. And that's what I wanted also, the rest of my relatives to do the same. And I think I'm following the same. Once I say something and you refuse, I'll keep quiet. And that was our father, Iriapa and Jonathan Ekocku. So he brought up his children in a God-fearing manner, and indeed they followed what he said. And that's why we are here. Although they have passed on, but we still remember them. And we shall continue remembering them. be it here or down there at home. So the rest of our brothers and sisters who are still there, we are only 4 now left in Area Paulus family. That is Geto Dikara, Rosa Sano, me, and then Sam Benuto. We are still alive, and we shall continue passing the word to the rest who are still alive. We shall continue being together with you and continue loving you as our brothers used to do. They are not with us, but we shall continue sharing with you all whatever we want to share together when we are together at home, and continue sharing with even your friends and others who are not here. We pray for them and we continue praying for them. Those who are not here, it is a must that we continue praying for them. Their being there is not for nothing. It is because of our prayers. That's why they are still there. Those ones who are overseas and those who are here. Our work is to continue praying for them so that they also live the way God wants them to live. Death is God's decision, but others is just caused by Satan. So when God says it is enough, or it is time for you to go, the glory goes back to him for the time that person has lived with us. So we need to continue praying for our departed people who have already gone, like the ones who are remembering now. I don't want to forget to introduce my husband, Cornelius. Reverend Cornelius, can you stand up for recognition? We are teachers by profession. He's the head teacher and I'm the deputy head teacher. We were born, I was born on the 24th, and he was also born on the 24th. And this is 2024. I think this is a very wonderful year for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mwalimu and Headmistress, Deputy. Now I'm giving this to the namesake of George. That name of Paro. There was a serious question here. Explain.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm very much humbled this evening to have this opportunity to say a few remarks about the people whom we are remembering today. I'm just going to give few remarks on what I know. I want to stretch your minds back. For David Opio, late. So we were in Ngora Boys NSC P1 together. That is 1960. When I was staying with the Papa, the late Opit. David and Charles were with me, P1, those days. And you remember those days, we were putting on these shorts with the suspenders. Because when you become hungry, the whole thing must dangle. So it was Mrs. Elesu. Lucy was making those uniforms for us. Unfortunately, I don't have a photograph of that. But when you are in the morning, when we go, we are well fed for breakfast. The Ekocku is sick. And although it's and around 1 o'clock, the stomach is good. So those things were keeping us suspenders. I don't see these days because I think you people were well fed. I was with David and Charles in the same class. That is Ngora, those days. Remember Ngora was the cream of education. I remember the families of the teachers who are there. The late Mr. Lomonite, Enabu, the late Ekocku, Jonathan, Mr. G.W. Oguli was the Chief Education Officer these days. Mr. William Mopit, where I was staying, Mr. Lucas Silas, and Mr. Makaya Lesu. That was, Ngora by then was the center of education. The cream of the teachers were there, cream de la cream. And most of my, the people who are with me in P1, I've only trusted two. There is Dr. Mwanika, he's in Mulago Hospital, and Dr. Kadu Peter is in Chambogo University. I lecture with him. I lost one recently. This is Dr. Lupot Agolakwa from Mora. David was a gentleman. Those days you could just see. And when we grew up, David, I don't want to repeat, he was a first-class gentleman, soft-spoken. I did not know much about Sarah, but let me come briefly to my namesake, George Oparo Akanyi Ekocku. Those are his names. My name is, for you who do not know, I'm Gustav Oparo Akanyi. So we almost, if you didn't know, it's only very few people here who call me Gustav. The father in High School refused to put that name in the register. He said it was a Russian name. So I took on James. So now when I talk to Henry, I said, because he was in Russia for very many years, I say, hello, Gorbachev. George Oparakanyi Ekocku was indeed a very close friend. And you know that name, we are very few. Before Francis passed on, Francis was the head. So whenever we meet, the only code name we say, Idara Ekiror, keep the name. And there is something unique about that name. I'm very sorry I've lost namesakes. Charles Oparo departed, George Oparakanyas, in a dilemma. What is there? He's a gentleman. Most of you have heard that was a sportsman. Yes, we went to Mwiri. I was in High School. If you didn't know, let me tell you now. I'm always a very impossible sportsman. In High School, I was a basketball coach. I played with the Professor Koja, was under my instruction. I was his chair, I was his captain. And we brought the trophies up for keeps. They are now in High School. So, no wonder he was a sportsman, and whenever we meet, we would talk about sports. I would talk and talk. May their souls rest in eternal peace. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. A lot has been said. I'm now going to conclude. I add my voice to welcome you all to this function, and I trust and believe that we are on the holy ground. I commend and appreciate the key organizers of this Memorial Thanksgiving function. Thank you so much for making this day come to pass. The previous date and day became a valuable day for the late Papa George Martin Ekocku. I want to inform you that we had a very successful meeting after the burial of Papa George Martin Ekocku, and we resolved to do a number of things. Target activities are beginning to unfold. On 20th January 2024, we conducted elections for the clan leadership, Upokora, Komolo, and Mulu. I want to assure you that Okuga family is the center of gravity for our clan. After consultations with some family members, we resolve to put faith into action by hoping and believing that we can have Thanksgiving for the rest of our dear ones in Oguga family in December 2024. I would like to register 2 apologies. The first one from Papa Richard Katongole, who was unwell. He could not come to join us. And then the second one from Toto, Jennifer Ekocku. The other thing which I want to mention is that the issue of writing a book for the late Papa Eriapo Alemulu has disturbed me for too long. By the grace and will of God, this book should be launched in December 2024 for our mission. I welcome you to be part of the hectic writing process. Avail that information or photos. One of the chapters will require profiles of our dear ones who are going to be with the Lord, plus some of us who are still alive. The rest will be written by those who will be anointed to make it happen. I want to give a few examples. Papa Jonathan Emulu Ekocku. There's a lot of information about Papa. If we don't write it when we know so much, nobody else will do it correctly. The late Papa William Opit. I remember when I qualified, I was posted to Serere SS. I reported, went around the compound, and came back to tell Papa Jonathan that I was not going back there. So he asked me to explain why. And I told him that my concern was, when will I grow in that school? So he consulted Mr. Pitt. And Papa Pitt went back to the ministry for another appointment for me now to cross to the PTC. That was the closeness they had, and they would go over any challenge. I think I over-disturbed them because they just refused to go back. And I told them I was going to manage the farm of the late Penu, the farm of Papa Pitt, and here. I was going to be a farm manager. I refused to go back. Papa Okwero did a lot during liberation. If we don't write something about him, it will be a big loss. But I was tipped that he had a garage in Dar es Salaam. And each time somebody would bring a vehicle for repair, he would instruct his boys to repair the vehicle. But he would work very hard to discover why the vehicle got spoiled. So he would think beyond repairs to discover why the vehicle got spoiled. And that was him. This one is a medalist. If she doesn't write about herself, nobody will write about her. 2 of them have now got medals, her and the late Papa William Okwero. We cannot hide ourselves from the public anymore, because we have expanded our social network and we have worked very hard to earn recognition, respect, and appreciation. We need to give thanks, glory, and honor to the Almighty for these recorded achievements so far. I have come with Toto. Toto stand up for recognition. That is mine. She has kept me all this long, and we have lived together for 40 years. We got her when she was very young, and Papa Jonathan Ekocku was very worried. If it was these days, I should have been arrested. So, but we have lived together. That law was not there back then. Through him, with him, around him, and in him, amazing grace, mercy, unconditional love, and hope will forever prevail in our clan of Ikomolo, Ikokora, Emolo. Be blessed and bless others. Thank you so much for coming and for listening to me. Jonathan, here you are.
Thank you very much. I would like to, in the same vein, just introduce some of the elders who are with us. Toto Angela Itinot. Thank you very much for being here with us. We also have here Teacher Gudo, one of the girls from the family. She's here with us. I want to safeguard my uncle, Papa Paro. Is here, Toto Paro is here, together with the daughter, last born Tina, and the firstborn Stephen Adatu. Please stand up for recognition. I'm going to Diara Majong in Nati Jomua. Plus the grandchild, Shine, is also there. Stephen Adatu is there, third born, and Tina is the last born, and the grandchild, Shine. Ateker, we are going for a short interlude again, and I'd like to invite the cherubims to give us some chorus. Thank you.
Common. But I never met Sarah, and I remember how devastated George was when she passed. Thank you so much for coming to honor David. David was the first one of my husband's siblings that I visited. The first one I met was Paul, when he was young and restless. Don't worry, I'm not going to say anymore. David was the first one to welcome me in his home when I was dating his brother. And he's the one who invited us to Mommy. I remember when Mommy came to visit and I happened to be there over the weekend, and we were seated at the table and we were eating, and Mommy asked a question in Ateso, and David looked at me and spoke Ateso but ended with the name George. So I knew he had ratted on us. Thank you so much for coming to honor George, the man who took me to the altar, gave me his name, and turned me into an artisan. Thank you for coming to honor him. I met George in the year 1989. Some of you, your mothers were not yet born. We were together at the National College of Business Studies, currently MOOBS. He was doing his ICSA and I was doing a higher diploma in marketing. And then we had a ball, a disco. And it was the proverbial crossing the ballroom. You know, he came straight to me. And as he was coming, I said, now look at this one also. I am not going to accept him. Because he was just a little bit more than tipsy. So he was swaying a bit. And me, I was a teetotal. I was not drinking at all. So I was like, look at this drunk also coming for me. But there were two things that played in his favor. The first one, that very night, he came and asked me, can I buy you something to drink? School, remember? Yeah, someone is offering, so you take it. So he said, can I buy you something to drink? I said, yes, sir. What are you drinking? I said, I'm drinking soda. And he went to look for the soda. Somehow the sodas were finished, they were only beers. And then he came and said, they are only beers. I said, no, don't worry, it's okay. So what I liked about him at that particular time, he did not try to persuade me to take beer instead. And if you grew up during my time, and I think it is still happening, when you are a girl and maybe it is a party and you tell a young man I don't drink, they will try to persuade you. They'll try to shame you, to tell you you are now old enough, blah, 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 blah. He did not do that. That was the first point that played in his favor. The second point was the following day. I was coming from class and he was from the library, and he was upstairs in his block where I used to reside at the time, and he remembered my name. He called me out, Jocelyn. I'm like, this drunk has a little bit of sense. If he can remember my name, drunk as he was. I mean, you young people, some of these little things, they mean a lot. I said maybe there is something in there. But before I got to meet George, I stayed in Rohana Hostel, girls' hostel. The current Rohana Academy at one point was a girls' hostel. And my friends were both from the east and from the north. And of course we would tell stories. And they would tell us how in Teso, when they marry you today, the following morning you find a debe, a tin of millet, you are going to have to grind it. And I said, I will never get married in Teso. Nobody will take me to that God-forsaken land. I said, I'm not going to marry there. I come from a culture, the Banyankore here will agree with me. I come from a culture where a bride is taken like an egg. The first 4 months of marriage, especially if you are not here in town looking for money, you don't do any work. Apart from that, they also assign somebody, some young lady who is going to take care of you. Boil your bathing water, wash your clothes, cook your food, serve you everything. And then you tell me you are going to Teso to grind millet on the second day. How? Who does that? So I said, I'm not going to Teso. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here in Teso after 33 years. George, where do you want me to start from? George was loving. George was kind. He was a great father. And I was saddened because Arthur's speech was breaking because of the network. The connectivity wasn't so good. But he was a loving father. Somebody who stood there with his son, understood his son's weaknesses and tried to help him work through them. That was George. George wasn't a father only to Arthur. You have had Tracy. Every child who has at one point or another lived in my home, when George was there, they'll tell you how loving he was, what a kind father he was. That was George. George was a loving husband. And he was very, very, very proud of me. Very, very proud of me. And he would let me know. Sometimes I've traveled a little bit. I've traveled to very many countries. And I would come back and I would have bought him something. I mean, every time you travel, you remember the people at home. So I would buy him something, a shirt here, something there. So I remember one time David Engulu. That's the name, I think, Ox. Yeah, David Engulu. Asked him, he was wearing a nice pair of socks, and he asked him, where do you buy your socks from? He looked at him and said, I have a wife. One time I asked him, but do you think you are the only one in this world who has a wife? And he said, but I'm the only one who has you for a wife. And that was George. George was loved in my home where I was born, because we were there for every nice thing, we were there for every sad thing. We would go together. I remember one time we had lost my uncle, my mother's brother, And when we went, we were made to park somewhere up, and then we sloped down. Then he met somebody he knew, and they stopped to talk. I was getting tired, so I went down to the tent to sit. My relatives did not allow me to sit. They said, go back and bring the man. You cannot come here and sit when the man is there. Why? Because they loved him. They saw the kind of man he was. He was there for me all the time. And that was George. I remember one time, I think it was my mom who came and she was sick. Yeah, it was my mom. She was sick and she had to travel to Nairobi for treatment. George was supposed to travel, I think, to Togota in Western Uganda. That time when they almost killed him, they sprayed their vehicle with bullets, but somehow they survived. He was going to go, but because my mother had to travel to Nairobi, and there's a way the ticket was, like maybe we hadn't understood it. Somehow she needed to go earlier than we had thought. George had to postpone going to Togota, and until we made sure that my mother had traveled. When they sprayed their vehicle with those bullets, I said, oh my God. He should have gone, and me, I would have been here to take care of my mother's travels. I don't know if those bullets had gotten him. I don't think I would have forgiven myself. And when he came, I told him that, and he said, no, you are not God, and you are not going to play God. That was George. Now, there's so much to say about George, but a lot of it has already been said. Now I want to talk about after he left. It's quite amazing how you can have a person by your side 33 years. You love him. At times you hate him. You feel like punching him. You love him back. You quarrel. You make up. You become best friends. And you think you know everything about them. And indeed you do. And then unexpectedly, he's taken from you. And then you begin to understand this is what it is, and he's not going to come back. And then you're like, I wish he could be here. Even for those things that used to irritate you the most about him, you start wishing for them. And you're saying, I wish he could be here and at least irritate me one more time. Let's quarrel one more time. Let me tell him how he has annoyed me. Let him tell me how I have annoyed him. Just one more time. But he's not there. But let me tell you something. There is a way God does his things. There is a way God takes care of you, even when you are not aware that he's the one taking care of you, but he is there. First of all, he puts the right support system in your way. Let me tell you something. I understood my family, the Omodoi family. I got to understand it the most after George left, because of the way they were there for me. You know, in my language, we have a saying, Chokuzarwaje, I mean, Chokwezirkaje Ozarwaje. Literally meaning, it is more valuable to be born in a good family than to be smart, as in to wear smart dresses, meaning than to be rich. And I have come to understand it. And that's why I know that George is happy where he is. I know when George liked me to be smart, by the way. Am I smart? Am I not?